You're listening to the Extraordinary Everyday Podcast with Wendy Johnson, episode number 74.
Welcome to the Extraordinary Everyday Podcast, where women come to be inspired and motivated to become the best version of themselves and elevate the quality of their everyday. Now, here's your host, certified life coach, Wendy Johnson.
Hello and welcome back, beautiful friends. Today's episode is a deeply personal one. We're talking about the parts of ourselves we don't like, the parts we judge, the parts we try to hide, and the parts we feel we need to fix in order to be enough. But here's a different perspective. What if those parts didn't make us less worthy, but instead made us more human? Today, we'll explore how to stop unnecessary self-judgment and suffering, embrace our imperfections, and even navigate the sting of judgment or feedback from other people. So grab a cup of tea, take a deep breath, and let's dive in. Let's start by unpacking where this self-judgment comes from. Why are we so hard on ourselves? From a young age, many of us are taught to meet certain expectations, be polite, achieve highly, look a certain way. And when we don't meet those expectations, the voice of criticism takes over. It's often not even our own voice, but an echo of societal standards or people who influenced us. We've taken these voices in and internalized it about what it means to be good or worthy. Maybe you've told yourself, I'm too lazy, or I'm always so impatient or grumpy. I know I have. Here's the tricky thing. Judgment often feels like control. We think that if we criticize ourselves enough, we'll change. But in reality, judgment locks us into shame and paralysis. Instead of growing, we stay stuck in the same patterns because we're too busy beating ourselves up to take positive action. So here's a question to ask yourself. What's behind my judgment? Is it fear of failure? A desire to belong? Awareness is the first step to untangling judgments you have about yourself and about other people. Now let's talk about the messy parts of being human. We're not perfect. Maybe you've labeled yourself as lazy because you didn't finish that project or didn't push through when you were exhausted. But here's the thing. Laziness is often a sign that something else is going on. Maybe you're burnt out. Maybe you're avoiding something because you're downright scared to do it. What would happen if you met that part of yourself with compassion instead of judgment? Giving yourself that self-love you so need. When I think of impatience, for example, it's easy to see it as a flaw. I don't want to be impatient, but impatience can also mean you're passionate or care deeply about something. Grumpiness might mean you need rest or emotional space. Maybe you've been around people too long. Every messy trait has something to teach us if we listen instead of shame ourselves for it. Think about the parts of you that you've labeled as bad. Maybe it's your impatience or your tendency to procrastinate. What if, instead of shaming those parts, you got curious about them? What if you asked, What is this part of me trying to tell me? What does it need? And what if we allowed these traits to coexist with our strengths? After all, being kind or hardworking doesn't cancel out your lazy or grumpy moments. Think about that. They're just part of the beautiful human experience. We're all complex and we're part negative and part positive. For many of us, our harshest judgments fall on our bodies, especially as we're aging. We compare ourselves to so many unrealistic standards, believing our worth is tied to how we look. But let me ask you this. Has criticizing your body ever led to lasting positive change? The answer is probably no. Self-criticism doesn't inspire you, it drains you. Loving your body doesn't mean ignoring your health or pretending you don't want to change your body. It means approaching those things from a place of care. For example, instead of saying, I need to lose weight because I hate how I look, try saying, I want to feel stronger and take care of my body because it deserves love, care, and attention. And for the things you can't or you don't want to change, practice letting go. Perfection isn't the goal. Self-acceptance is the goal. Now let's talk about something we all face, and that's feedback or opinions from other people. Sometimes it's constructive, and other times it hurts. Have you ever received criticism and immediately thought, they're right, I'm not good enough? It's natural to feel that way, but let's reframe it. This is important. Maybe you can still hear those words from somebody years ago, and you question whether it's true or not. It's important to know that not all feedback is about you. Often it reflects the other person's perspective, nothing about your worth. But when feedback is valid, it doesn't define who you are. When you feel hurtful judgment, pause and ask yourself, is this feedback coming from a place of care or criticism? You can even reframe incidences you had from many years ago and rewrite the story. And you can ask yourself this question: what part of me feels triggered by this and why? Use feedback as a tool for growth, not as a weapon for self-punishment. And remember, you don't need anyone else's approval to be worthy. You were born worthy. Finally, let's talk about the parts of us we hide, the parts we think make us unlovable. Maybe you're ashamed of being too emotional, too sensitive, or too much of something else. Are you too much? I've actually been told that I was too much. I loved it. I love being too much. But hiding these parts doesn't make them disappear. It makes them fester in the shadows. The truth is, those parts of you are like wildflowers. They're messy, but beautiful in their own way. Remember that. When you stop hiding, you create space for authentic connection. The right people will love you for who you are, not who you're pretending to be. Here's what I want you to take away today. You are worthy, not because you're perfect or because you've checked off some imaginary list of good enoughs. You're worthy simply because you're here, living, breathing, and trying. We're all here doing the same thing, and nobody is above us, looking down on us. Learn to sit with your imperfections. Love your body for all it does. Release the grip of self-judgment and be curious about the parts of you've hidden away. And the next time someone's opinion or your inner critic tells you that you've fallen short, remind yourself you're doing your best, and that's enough. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need this message. Don't forget to subscribe so we can keep these conversations going. Until next time, please give yourself some grace and love. You deserve it. I look forward to being with you next week, friends. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, you have to come check out More You, my community of like-minded women. We show up to create the highest version of ourselves and elevate the quality of our everyday along the way. Head over to ontracklifecoaching.com/join. That's ontraclifecoaching.com/join. I'd love to see you in there. And if you haven't grabbed your copy of the Mindset Makeover, head over to ontracklifecoaching.com/makeover and get a copy that teaches and inspires you to show up as your most extraordinary self.